We're going in depth right now. A lot at stake in Washington. While the government shutdown continues into week 2, President Trump has announced a peace deal between Israel and Hamas. The White House says hostages could be released as early as Monday. And now the U.S. says it's sending about 200 troops to Israel to help support and monitor the ceasefire deal. So for more on the shutdown and the deal, we sat down with Kevin Bishop, our political analyst and former communications director for Senator Lindsey Graham. Well, Kevin Bishop, thank you so much for taking some time with us. As always, let's go and start with this huge deal between Israel and Hamas. What does it mean as a whole in this entire landscape, now past the 2-year mark since October 7th?
Well, let's be clear. If President Trump is able to release the 20 hostages that are being held right now by Hamas, that would be a huge, honestly, feather in his cap, a great achievement. It would be something I think you would see the world rejoice in, to see these hostages come back into Israel. I'm probably a little more pessimistic than others about what it means long term for the future of Israeli-Palestinian peace relations. I mean, the underlying problem you will run into is there is a significant portion of the Palestinian population which does not believe Israel has a right to exist. And there's a significant portion of the Israeli population who thinks they can never live at peace with the Palestinians, and we just need to go ahead and move them away. So if we can get the hostages home, great step. Everyone should rejoice. And every day that we can have a ceasefire or peace in that region of the world, that's a positive. But as for a game changer, long term, years from now, I just don't see that. I would love to be more optimistic, but I'm also very realistic about the chances of what this means going forward.
Yeah, peace in the Middle East, always something that seems like every administration is aiming for, just never quite able to achieve. But right here back at home, speaking of trying to make some peace, Republicans, Democrats still at odds right now. Government shutdown continues. Is there a path forward to a deal to be reached? Because it seems like the two sides are still so far apart, especially when it comes to what they view and what needs to happen with healthcare.
Yeah, well, the drop dead date, really the date that's really going to be a big one to keep in mind here is October 13th. October 13th, Monday, October 13th is the day in which they need to have a deal in place. So checks will continue to go out for federal employees on October 15th. Right now, even people who are furloughed, I'll let you in on a little secret. To be furloughed is not necessarily the worst thing to happen to you, because by law, they get paid back pay. So even though they're not at work, they generally will be made whole in their salary. However, if they don't have a deal by October 13th, the checks will not go out on October 15th, and that becomes a situation in which there creates different havoc. I think the last government shutdown we had were TSA agents called out, so it backed up traffic at the airport. People were not able to get on the flights. It really created a havoc. That's sort of the next step. But as for getting closer to a deal, I really don't think they are. I mean, they've had 7 votes now. They don't seem to have moved any which way or the other. Honestly, these things only come to some type of resolution when they get right down to the last minute and one side feels they're winning and one side feels they're losing. And right now we don't have that. I think both sides are pretty comfortable with where they stand. And so we just are sort of in this standoff, shall we say.
Do you think it could come down to one of those situations where we've heard Republicans talk about years ago repealing and replacing Obamacare? Right now, it seems like a lot of those contingencies are what keeps them at odds, and those elements of Obamacare. Could we revisit that for the Republican Party, where we see them start to introduce possible ideas to replace Obamacare on down the line?
Well, the big issue right now is subsidies, or actually enhanced subsidies. And that's something that was passed during COVID. They're expiring. People will get if you're on healthcare.gov, you will get a larger bill coming forward without those enhanced subsidies. I don't think you're going to see Obamacare repealed. Every time the Republicans have tried that, we simply haven't had the votes. And so I don't think you're going to see anything in the short term on that. The question is, what do you do with these subsidies? But the most important thing is this: how do you open the government up? How do you get it back in business? How do you get it in operation? And right now, again, both sides, they don't feel they're taking a big hit. So we're sort of just in a standoff, and just the clock, the clock's just ticking, and we'll see. October 13th, that's really going to be the big date to keep in mind, that they have to have a deal by the end of October 13th for those checks to go out.
You mentioned furloughed real quickly here. What about people who could be laid off? The president has also mentioned that people could be letting go of the federal workforce. What about those situations, and what could be the long-term effects with that?
Well, President Trump has been he's been a little bit hesitant. He talked about it at first. I think there was some thought that he was just going to do like a Doge and simply eliminate some departments, agencies. He really has not done that. There seems to be some disagreements among Republicans. I've seen Republicans in Congress have told him to go very slow on that. They think that it weakens their hand in negotiations. I think there's also some Democrats. Senator John Fetterman was very concerned with having to shut down at all, and that President Trump may just start to shutter departments. So I don't think, I will say this from President Trump's point of view and his political supporters, as long as any firings or layoffs take place among people working in Washington, D.C., it does not hurt him at all politically, because that's a city that votes 95% for the Democrat for president. So he could actually lay off people who are based in Washington, D.C. It does not hurt him politically. In fact, he would be cheered by his base, which is basically located outside of Washington. So,
All right, Kevin Bishop, thank you so much for your time and your insight as always. Appreciate it.
thank you.